Good evening, and welcome to the latest happenings inside our federal machine.
It is Wednesday, February 11th, 2026. It's Faith On with tonight's episode of The Swamp. Today, Attorney General Pamela Bondi testified before the House Judiciary Committee discussing the progress made by the Justice Department during Trump's second administration. And the January 2026 jobs numbers were released today, shattering expectations by over 100,000. A total of 130,000 new positions were added across the country. The Save America Act has officially passed in the House, advancing to the Senate in an effort to secure our elections by requiring voter ID. According to the Department of Homeland Security, the Biden administration allowed the entry of more than 5% of the entire population of the following countries: Haiti, Nicaragua, Cuba, and Honduras. And also, Secretary Chris Wright, with the Department of Energy, he traveled to Caracas today under the direction of President Trump to meet with Venezuelan leaders and view the progress of America's energy deal with Venezuela. And President Trump spoke with Prime Minister Netanyahu to discuss Israel's ongoing negotiations with Iran and insisted that negotiations must continue if a deal is not met in the short term. And also, the USDA and Department of War co-signed a memorandum that will block foreign adversaries from acquiring America's farmland, as well as sharing security vulnerabilities in agriculture between the two departments. And there's a lot more that happened today, so we're going to dive straight in. And if you enjoyed the video, please give the video a quick like if and when you get a second, and subscribe to the channel, ring the bell, all that good stuff. And especially if you enjoy the daily updates, as I do the Swamp Monday through Friday posts, usually about 11 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. And if you leave a comment below, I might just read it on tomorrow's episode. And every article you'll see in this episode will be linked down below in the description. And we're going to start right here with U.S. Department of Justice from earlier today. AG Pam Bondi to the House Judiciary Committee. Quote, President Trump has given us the resources, the support, and the leadership to protect the American people. President Trump's policies have saved lives. I cannot think of a policy outcome more important than protecting the lives of American citizens. Can you? Let's give this a watch.
Thank you, Chairman Jordan, Ranking Member Raskin, and distinguished members of this committee. Thank you for hosting me here today. I'm grateful for the opportunity to answer your questions, highlight the work of our department, and discuss the most important topic of all, keeping the American people safe. A little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as the 87th Attorney General of the United States. I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization. The Department of Justice's core mission is to fight violent crime, protect the American people, and defend the rule of law above all else. While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic. If you compare 25 to 24, here's what you'll find. The murder rate is down 21%. Robbery down 23%, carjacking down 43%, gun assault down 22%, ag assault, burglary, could go on and on. Crime is declining. This did not happen by accident. The numbers tell an important yet straightforward
because Democrats aren't running
story.
the show right now.
President Trump has given us the resources, the support, and the leadership to protect the American people.
Why do you think they got sanctuary cities?
President Trump's policies have saved lives.
Who are, by definition, criminals.
I cannot think of a policy outcome more important than protecting the lives of American citizens. Can you? This trend has been especially clear in Washington, D.C. and in Memphis. These are two iconic American cities that spent years in the grip of horrific violent crime. The Department of Justice surged law enforcement resources, and the results came quickly. Crime plummeted in both cities. And I want to make one point loud and clear. We achieved those results by working with Democratic mayors. Public safety does not have a party registration. When your constituents call 911, they don't ask for political views of the responding officer. They ask for help. I have federal agents in each and every one of your districts. They're here to help, and I am here to help.
Shit, I'm muted. My bad. So, yeah, apologies for the atrocious video quality of that clip. Welcome to the federal government and the X platform. Put together, they can really make some questionable video quality, but it's hit and miss, so hopefully it'll get a little better. But anyway, I gotta admit, when Attorney General Pamela Bondi was tapped to be the AG, I was actually kind of excited because she came from my home state of Florida, and she was our AG for a number of years, I think in the 2010s for the most part. But as of right now, I can't say that I'm exactly thrilled because we're not seeing any investigations. Well, okay, maybe we're seeing quite a few investigations happening, not nearly enough, not enough to really, see any meaningful progress with regard to combating the deep state, the swamp. But where are the indictments? That's one thing that all of us are just left wondering. There's plenty of people out there that should be getting criminally charged, like going all the way back, probably well over a decade, but we're not really seeing really anything. So hopefully they'll move a little further than just simply investigating. We're looking into it. We're checking this and that, especially with dropping the massive ball on with regard to James Comey. I mean, how the hell do you fuck that up? All right, so anyway, we got this one from Rapid Response 47, quote, "We have made tremendous progress to make America safe again." And then she goes over some numbers, I think. If it's a repeat, it's possible. This looks like her opening statement. This came from Rapid Response. The one before it came from the DOJ. So it's possible that maybe it could just be a piece of the last clip that we saw. If it is, then we'll just go to the next one. I've actually got quite a few of these. So
a little over a year ago, I was sworn into office as the 87th Attorney General of the United States.
I don't know. Did we hear this one?
I came into office with the goal of refocusing the Department of Justice on its core mission after years of bloated bureaucracy and political weaponization. The Department of Justice's core mission is to fight violent crime.
Dude, there should be a shitload of indictments by now.
People,
I mean, hell, come on, man.
You
all have that a
the
year.
rule of law above all else. While our work is never done, we have made tremendous progress to make America safe again. In 2025, we saw the lowest murder rate in 125 years. That's nothing short of historic. If you compare 25 to 24, here's what you'll find. The murder rate is down 21%. Robbery down 23%.
Okay, didn't we already hear that,
down
though?
43%. Gun assault down 22%. Ag assault, burglary, could go on and on. Crime is declining.
Okay, I think we already heard that, right? I don't know. I was for the most part paying attention. I was looking over on the other screen in the moment, so I suppose we'll move on. What the hell's Obama doing here? No, I'm just kidding. But what's her name? She's a cutie back there, dressed to impress. All right, so let's move on to the next one. U.S. Department of Justice, AG Pam Bondi. The Department of Justice is committed to holding criminals accountable to the fullest extent of the law. Over 1,700 child predators, 10% increase from 2024. I don't think she went through the numbers, though, in the original, did she? I don't know.
The Department of Justice is committed
I don't think so.
to holding criminals accountable to the fullest extent of the law. In 2025, the FBI arrested over 1,700 child predators, a 10% increase from 2024. We also located 2,700 victims of child exploitation and shut down 3.8 million dark web pedophile accounts. 3.8 million. So please,
Yikes,
if you have information to share,
that's a start. Imagine how many there still are.
Contact the FBI.
Dude, I actually heard a conversation between a couple people online here on YouTube. I don't remember which channel I was watching, but they brought up Discord and the fact that Discord, if the federal government were to really dig into Discord and investigate the goings-on that's happening across the entire platform of Discord, they would probably uncover millions and millions of predators out there. And it was kind of shocking when they were going over that conversation.
Today,
never really considered that. I've never been on
Discord.
Discord.
Further, our shared obligation to protect the American people, uphold the rule of law, and keep this nation safe. Thank you.
keep the nation safe. Yeah, that's exactly what, hopefully, that they're going to continue doing. I mean, the numbers speak for themselves, that numbers are going down substantially. Well, that tends to happen when you weed out hundreds of thousands of criminal illegals to start with, not to mention moving in federal law enforcement, different agencies, the National Guard into major cities, which Democrats hate that. They really hate their crime numbers going down. All right, so we have this one. I spent 4 days myself in Minnesota and Minneapolis. What I will say about some of these sanctuary cities, some of these Democratic cities, law enforcement, they quietly want to work with us. I've spoken to law enforcement in multiple cities who want to work with us, and so on and so on. I don't generally like to read these quotes because we're going to hear everything in the video, but I don't want to just click and play without any context. So
Thank you.
Let's give it a watch.
Yes, I spent 4 days myself in Minnesota, in Minneapolis. What I will say about some of these sanctuary cities, some of these Democratic cities, law enforcement, they quietly want to work with us. I've spoken to law enforcement in multiple cities who want to work with us. And yes, we're going to do everything we can to keep our citizens safe, whether or not these Democrat-controlled sanctuary cities do or don't.
Yeah, and you know what? Honestly, I kind of believe her that there are some Democrat politicians, even city leaders, mayors, who do want to work together, but they got to toe the TDS line. They got to stay on the other side, and they can't give an inch because they don't want to piss off the outrage mob. All right, so speaking of the outrage mob and the Democrats, we've got a few videos from them, a few clips from the other side with regard to AG Pam Bondi. So from this one, Mr. Producer, AG Bondi explodes at Rep. Dan Goldman. Goldman says, "I'm talking, quiet. Don't you yell at me." So apparently they had kind of a fiery exchange. So I guess we'll check it out.
And I see you're checking with your staff, and I can assure you, staff, this is not under attorney-client privilege because it was sent from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell.
Uh-oh.
Will you commit to publicly providing the unredacted version of this so that the American people can understand the extent of Donald Trump's lies about his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein?
Okay, well, first of all, the whole thing's redacted, so how the fuck do you even know it has anything to do with Trump in any way, shape, or form? Secondly, I actually agree with him. They should redact everything on there. If it's from Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, they absolutely should redact 100% of that email.
You're about as good of a lawyer today as you were when you tried to impeach President Trump in 2016. Have you apologized for that in 2019?
So will you unredact this? Will you
were
unredact
lead
this?
counsel on that. Privileged.
I'm asking you, will you unredact this?
Privileged.
Privileged, of course. I look forward to discussing this more. Now, these are obviously improper redactions.
Well, and let me stop for a minute.
I'm talking.
If they're not privileged,
quiet.
Don't yell at me. If they're not
Mr. Chairman, would you stop the clock? This is on your time. It's not on Mr. Goldman.
If they're not
Even though
privileged,
you used your improper redactions,
you'll like my answer.
to
If we
continue
review them
to
and they're not
protect
privileged,
Donald
Time belongs to the
we will
member.
be happy to release them.
Yeah, we'll
after
stop the
review.
clock. We'll stop the clock. Time belongs to the member. Go ahead.
I saw the chairman smiling up there. All right, let's go to the next one. MS Now, Rep. Bellant slams Bondi over anti-Semitism comment and walks out of the House hearing. Oh, how dramatic.
Didn't see one tweet, not one. I didn't see one tweet when Joe Biden was in office about Bill Clinton. Didn't ask Merrick Garland.
No, they didn't see anything about anything with Jeffrey Epstein when Biden was in office. There was like virtually nothing. Where was the outrage when Biden was in? I mean, look, at one point, they had the House, the Senate, and the Oval Office. Why didn't they just blanket release everything unredacted back then? Because they know Trump's not in anything. He might be mentioned here and there, which, by the way, like 99% of everything where Trump is mentioned in the Epstein files was inserted into the Epstein files, I believe, after he became president in 2016. Find that kind of interesting in the middle of the whole Russia bullshit.
Anything about Epstein, not once. When he was
weak sauce.
And also, I want the record to reflect that,
Weak
with
sauce?
this anti-Semitic culture right now, she
Oh,
voted
somebody got
against
triggered.
a resolution condemning.
Shame!
Shame!
I just want to be clear.
Do you want to go there, Attorney General? Or do you want to go there? Are you serious? Talking about anti-Semitism to a woman who lost her grandfather in the Holocaust? Really?
The committee will be in order.
Talk to Jared Wise about anti-Semitism.
The ranking member knows that.
Can I get like 30 seconds back,
Yeah, I've been.
Oh, man, that was hilarious. Does she explode regularly at Democrats when they're screaming free Palestine from the river to the sea? They're going to control everything. Oh, of course not. No, of course not. All right, so ACYN, that was spicy. So Raskin, we ask you politely but firmly, do not waste 1 second of our precious time by evading questions or engaging in personal attacks. So they have a back and forth here. Let's take a watch.
Now, as ranking member, I asked the chairman to add a few extra rounds of questions today because we each have 5 hours of questions, not 5 minutes. But we're stuck with 5 minutes. That's clearly insufficient.
Okay, then why are you wasting
to give
time?
voice to America's victims and survivors and to demand answers about all the corruption and cover-ups that we see at DOJ right now. We've got just 1 round, so we ask you
all
politely but firmly, Madam Attorney General, please do not waste 1 second of our precious time by evading questions.
Dude, so far you've wasted like 35 seconds of your own time by just yammering about a bunch of nonsense.
Changing the subject or engaging in personal attacks against members of Congress. We saw your performance in the Senate, and we're not going to accept that. This isn't a game. In the Senate, you brought something with you called a burn book, a binder of smears to attack members personally for doing the people's work of oversight. Please set the burn book aside and answer our questions. And when you hear us reclaim our time, that means it's time for you to stop speaking.
If I'm not mistaken, it sounds like the burn book is a list of different comebacks or statements that she can reply with whenever they throw certain buzzwords at her, as far as I know.
We only have 5 minutes, so when we reclaim our time, that means you stop. And if you don't, we will ask the chair to stop the clock and let you go on his time. The quality of justice in America depends on the character of our government.
Oh my God,
Please do your job.
Come on, Mr. Ranking Member, let's go.
Bring the Department of Justice back from the brink.
Let's go.
The survivors seated behind you and the American people watching everywhere deserve a Department of Justice worthy of its name. I yield back, Mr. Chair.
Objection.
Oh my God, dude, what an incredible waste of time that was. Okay, dude. All right, I think that's all that I got for the Democrats. Okay, so then we'll move on to like the less emotional, or the less estrogen-filled rants and whatnot. So, all right, so Rep. McClintock reacts to the historic drop in violent crime, and they talk about the historic drop in
under
violent
the
crime.
leadership of the FBI, historic work has been done. A drop 20% in the nationwide murder rate in 2025. Least murders in our country since 1900, and that is to the work because of the credit of Donald Trump.
It's not just homicides, is it? It's all.
Well, by the way, that's when the United States government started keeping records. So arguably, it could have been in the entire nation's history, although I guess you do have to account for the Wild Wild West way back in the day, where I'm sure crime was probably insane. But maybe it wasn't as crazy as Hollywood leads you to believe, since I would assume most, if not virtually everybody, carried arm back then, and a well-armed society is a polite society, but still, like, that's when they started keeping records, was back in the year 1900, at least so I've heard.
So other violent crimes, robbery. Could you go through that list real quick?
Yes, Congressman. 100% increase in violent crime arrest in 2025 compared to 2024.
What's that done to the violent crime rate in the country?
It's plummeting.
Gone down.
1,800 gangs.
Wait a second. Do you mean to honestly tell us, and you're under oath, that if we take violent criminals off the streets, we end up with less crime?
No. Really?
I certainly hope so, Congressman, and that's our goal, and that's
an extraordinary concept, and I'm afraid it may be lost on some of our Democratic colleagues.
No shit.
I look at these numbers, and they're absolutely staggering. It didn't happen by accident. It happened because of specific policies that you've implemented this year. And you mentioned a few of them. Would you continue?
Over 6,000 child victims located, 22% increase. Over 1,700 child predators.
Yeah, no, and that's kind of interesting when Democrats scream about the Epstein files this and Epstein files that, but yet over 400,000 children went missing underneath the Democrats' watch under the Biden administration. They didn't really seem to give a shit about kids back then.
Arrested, 10% increase. Over 300 human traffickers arrested. Let me jump down to DEA right now. That was just FBI.
Like, grill me over Epstein.
Under Terry
what about
Cole's
the 300,000 children that you let go missing?
I talk to these people almost daily.
That we're trying to find, mop up their mess.
And the amazing work that they're doing in all of your jurisdictions on the left and the right, working together to take drugs off our streets.
Right.
Yeah, and apparently Democrats right now, they're trying to there's a law or a regulation or something with some statutory limit that I from what I read, I think it's set to expire, and it's going to reduce the security that's up on the northern border across Canada. And apparently Democrats in Congress are really trying to work hard to make sure that expires. And of course, the Republicans are saying that believe it or not, there are probably not as well, certainly not as many drugs that are flown in from the northern border as from the southern border, historically speaking. However, there still is a problem with drugs getting into the country from up north. So I guess we'll have to see what ends up happening with that. I actually might have something with regard to that later on in this episode. So House Republicans, they tried everything to stop him, but President Trump is still here and still fighting. AG Pam Bondi is 100% right. The Democrats' campaign of interference failed. They owe an apology to Trump and every American citizen for what they put us through. Yeah, dude, good luck. Never going to get that.
First, he brought up the president saying they indicted me twice. They sure did. They tried to impeach him twice. And you, Mr. Nadler, were one of the leads on the impeachment. I was on the other side.
Yeah,
I lived that with you.
They had nothing.
During impeachment, you said the president conspired, sought foreign interference in the 2016 election.
Yeah, which, by the way, I mean, she would know like everything that exists in these files with her being the Attorney General for the Department of Justice. So I'm sure she has access to anything and everything that would be classified having to do with all the Russia bullshit and the phone call with Zelensky bullshit and the whole over the election nonsense that happened in Georgia.
Robert Mueller found no evidence, none, of foreign interference in 2016. Have you apologized to President Trump? Have you apologized?
Yeah, just like Senator Adam Schiff saying that I've seen mountains of evidence when he was the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee when they were impeaching Trump back during his first term.
Apologize to President Trump, all of you who participated in those impeachment hearings against Donald Trump. You all should be apologizing. You sit here and you attack the president, and I am not going to have it. I'm not going to put up with it.
Doing the jerk-off motion.
First.
Okay, all right, so we got the end of that one. I think I have at least one more. Okay, yeah, one more. All right, from AG Bondi, we've seized more than 9,800 kilograms of fentanyl and 47 million fentanyl pills. So we'll
Thank
give
you,
this a watch.
Congressman. We've seized more than 9,800 kilos of fentanyl and 47 million fentanyl pills. That affects every single person in this room. It doesn't matter what political party you are. Everyone in this room knows someone who's died from fentanyl. A parent, a child, a sister, a brother, a friend, a neighbor, a relative.
Yeah, someone I know
Everyone
died.
here
Actually, two.
knows someone who has been impacted by that. That is the common ground that I wish we could find to work together in this country, to take these drugs off the streets. And someone nodded with vapes.
Yeah, I mean, like my first cousin, she passed away from it about 2 years ago. And somebody that I don't know personally, is just somebody that I know just through the internet. He passed away from fentanyl last year. And yeah, man, it's horrible. And I think she's absolutely right. I think if you look out, because like what the average person knows personally, I think it's like 150 people. So if it's not somebody that you knew directly, 100% somebody that you know had somebody die from fentanyl at the very least. So that's the highlights that they shared from the DOJ, from House Republicans. So that's the gist of it. There was a lot more that happened because it was a fairly long hearing. I didn't have a chance to listen to it because I had to work all day. But it just seems to appear that the Democrats are just focused on Epstein and Republicans were focused on the progress, the data, the statistics, all the wins as far as crime is concerned with regard to Trump's first year, or the Trump administration's first year. And we'll move on. Speaking of which, we've got this from Senate Republicans, 130,000 new jobs in January. That's over 100,000 above the estimate. President Trump keeps shattering expectations and delivering for American families. And I will have to say that usually, about a month, maybe a month and a half after they release the job numbers, they usually have to correct it back to, I don't know if like a more accurate number would be a better way or the best way to put it. However, whoever was working in the Bureau of Labor Statistics, if you've been following politics, I can't remember her name, but what's her name? She was let go, fired back in, might have been June or July. It was over the summer last year because she was wildly overinflating the job statistics by saying that 300,000 jobs were added because after they investigated or whatever, they determined that she was wildly overinflating them. So that way they had to make a drastic correction, which looked very negatively on the Trump administration. And that individual had been working there throughout the whole Biden administration. And supposedly the jobs numbers that came out month over month were a lot more accurately placed when she was working under Biden as opposed to working with Trump. So I would imagine that these job numbers are probably not going to get adjusted down that much. If anything, maybe they might even get adjusted up. but we'll have to wait and see. But either way, that's a hell of a good number. It's over 100,000 above the estimate. So I'm assuming they were estimating 30,000 jobs in January. And if that's the case, then, I mean, yeah, man, that's like what, like 5 times or something like that, multiple times above. So we'll give this a watch on Fox Business.
130,000 jobs created for the month of January. Wow. The estimate was 70,000. Wow, I was right, Maria. 4.3.
Okay. So it's 70,000. So why did it say it's over 100,000 above the estimate? But then we got this 172,000 private sector jobs that were added in January of 2026. And this is from the U.S. Department of Labor. So I'm going to take this number above the Senate Republicans. So apparently 172,000 jobs were added, which would make that number more accurate. That's over 100,000 above the estimate. So maybe they just did a typo here and they meant to put 170,000 new jobs added in January. That'd be my guess.
Wow. Is the unemployment rate. The street was looking for 4.4%. Right. This is not the kind of report we expected to see, guys. Let me give you the government jobs picture. That is negative 42,000 on the government side.
Let's go, man.
Part of the equation. We saw that in the reports previously.
I've got some info on that here
we
in a minute,
also saw labor force participation rate 62.5%. Average hourly earnings 0.41%. That is actually higher than the expectations. The average hourly earnings month to month a little bit higher than expected. Private payrolls
month to month 0.5. That's actually not too bad, really.
2,000.
That's what, 6% year over year on average.
I had to do a double take. 172,000 private jobs, guys. That's 100,000 above the estimate. We were looking for 70,000. The average work week, 34.3 hours. Let me get to the report here and give you a sense of what the government is saying about where the jobs are. We've seen healthcare, we've seen retail.
Force and manufacturing
but basically, where is this? Let's see here. Healthcare, social assistance, construction. Those were where they saw the buildup in jobs.
Very interesting, because the Democrats kept screaming that construction was going to get decimated because all of the illegal immigrants were getting rounded up.
The decreases they saw, as I mentioned, federal government and also financial activities. They're mentioning a job loss in those 2 sectors. So that's actually very interesting as well.
Exactly
but again, a very different story, Maria. I am seeing the U.S. dollar right now strengthening on my screen, and I'm seeing the Treasury yields really jump after this report. I'm going to dig more into the specifics and send it back to you.
Well, good grief, man. The Dow is rocketing up toward 51,000 already. Holy shit. S&P 500 almost at 7,000. Damn, dude. That is crazy. Talk about like 2 different world views. I mean, you look at the stock market, it is absolutely like screaming toward the stratosphere. But then when you look over at the middle class, where we've got record debt on all fronts, and a lot of people are really still struggling, even though under the Trump administration, they brought down inflation by a wide margin. And things are really starting to settle back down. They're not. It's not at 2% yet. That's the target that the Federal Reserve always tries to meet. But it's getting closer. However, settling to where it's not moving isn't really doing a whole lot for the middle class, because everything is still like wildly more expensive than it was, let's say, 5 years ago. All right. So from the Department of Labor, as I showed a minute ago, January job growth shattered expectations. 130,000 non-farm jobs. Okay, so those are non-farm jobs. Just to elaborate on that 130,000 number, added in 172,000 in total in the private sector. Unemployment fell, wages rose, and in federal employment reached its lowest level since 1966. Proof the Trump economy is delivering for Americans. And this is from RNC Research. President Trump beats job expectations by double. And let's see, outpaced expected job growth in January by double, creating 130,000 new jobs for the American people. Unemployment rate fell, wages grew. Federal employment is now at its lowest level since 1966. And did we? No, we didn't. I don't think we played this one. Here, let's take a look at
this. Jobs numbers right now from Cheryl. 130,000 jobs created.
Okay, yeah, we did. We already got that one. All right, so what they are saying, economist and professor Peter St. Onge, it was a blockbuster report. CNBC host Rick Santelli, all of these naysayers, 50K, says you've all been wrong. Fox Business host Cheryl Casone, private payrolls, 172,000. I had to do a double take. Economist Stephen Moore, this is exactly the opposite of what we saw under Biden. Economist Rana Foror, this is a hot jobs report. There's really nothing in this not to like. 2026 is off to a hot start as President Trump continues to revive the American dream. I mean, as far as the jobs numbers go, and that is very true. Although the white collar sector, things aren't looking too good. I mean, I keep Look, I watched a lot of stuff on YouTube with regard to the housing market, the automotive market, and the jobs market. Also, like I'm sometimes addicted to those like consumer debt videos. Like you frequently see those on TikTok. There's a lot of those compilation videos that people put together on YouTube. And from what everybody keeps saying, at least in the white collar sector, or in corporate America, things are pretty dire. I mean, like they'll send out a job application times like 1,000 to all kinds of different employers, and they just don't ever get calls back. Apparently, a lot of that has to do with AI. People are using AI to send out job applications without realizing that the employers are using AI filters to filter out all of those AI applications because they don't want anything that's being sent to them in the form of AI because that's just very little effort. So if you're sending a resume that was AI generated, or if you're filling out applications using any kind of AI service or AI assistant tools or anything like that, you're probably going to get rejected, which really sucks for the rest of people because if you're sending out hundreds and hundreds of applications, all these employers are just getting buried in applications. And I mean, for some of them that may not be using AI tools, you just get completely buried in just this massive stack of applicants. So anyway, that's what I'm hearing. So I haven't dealt with it personally, and that's just something that I've heard. All right, so anyway, from the GOP, from President Trump's Truth Social, just in, great jobs numbers, far greater than expected. The United States of America should be paying much less on its borrowings or bonds. We are, again, the strongest country in the world and should therefore be paying the lowest interest rate by far. This would be an interest cost savings of at least $1 trillion per year. Balanced budget plus, wow, the golden age of America is upon us. President DJT. And from the Trump War Room, new U.S. economy added 130,000 jobs in January, smashing expectations. The unemployment rate fell to 4.3% on CNBC.
Hi, good morning, Kelly. Yes, it's Jobs Wednesday. Not necessarily a Friday, but every bit as important. Non-farm payrolls for January coming in twice expectations at 130,000. 130K. That would be the juiciest going back to April of last year when it was 158.
Well, there you go. And that was on CNBC. Did I mention it was on CNBC? It was on CNBC. All right, Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, in President Trump's second term, 615,000 private sector jobs have been added, while federal employment has declined to its lowest level since 1966 and the lowest level in recorded history as a share of the total workforce. Check this out. Federal employment is at its lowest level since 1966. Federal employees sitting about almost 3 million going back in January of 2021, sagged a little bit in 22, 23, and then started rocketing up, of course, under the Biden administration, trying to employ as many as they possibly could before his term was up. And then once Trump got in, it started going down, and just falling like a rock. And that is great news. That's awesome to see because they're cutting a lot of regulations. Like, what was Trump's policy? It's like for every one regulation that's added, there has to be something like 30 or 35 regulations that are removed, which is amazing. And some regulations, once they get cut, a lot of employees in the government get cut right along with it. So that is fantastic, especially if you're constantly worried about the national deficit, if you have children, or if you have a legacy that's going to carry off into the future, then you should be very concerned with the national deficit. And downsizing the federal government, probably one of the best ways that we can handle trying to get the deficit under control, even though it's not under control, not at all. I'm still waiting on that. That is one of Trump's promises when he was running in 2024, also probably in 2016 also, that we've not seen really enough movement on. All right, so this is from the Council of Economic Advisors, Jobs Day Data Dump. And they dropped some numbers here. The January monthly data came in far above expectations, showing 172,000 new private sector jobs and a decline of 42,000 in government jobs. Private sector employment rose 615,000 in President Trump's first year in office, while federal employment declined by 324,000 jobs to its lowest level since 1966. And prime age labor force participation rose to its highest level since 2001, as more Americans are coming off the sidelines. Average hourly earnings rose 3.7% in President Trump's first year in office, while average weekly earnings are at 4.3%. Construction employment in specialty trades rose by 25,000 in January, the highest monthly change since 2020. Let's go, man. Some really good news. And we're going to move on to the next topic from Nick Sordor. Breaking: the Save America Act has officially advanced in the House, setting the stage for a full vote on the bill later today, 216 to 215. It is split right down the middle. This is a 90-10 issue. This needs to be a top priority. And yes, it was from Pew Research, which, if I'm not mistaken, is a left-leaning research firm. And they had reported that 71% of Democrats are in favor of voter ID. Of course, elected Democrats certainly are not. I'd say like 99% of them are against voter ID, with John Fetterman seeming to be the only voice of reason over on the Democrat side these days. So all they're going to do is just announce what the votes are. It's about 8 seconds.
Vote, the yeas are 216, the nays are 215. The resolution is adopted. Without objection.
All right, well, there you have it. 216 for Republicans, yay, with 1 nay. I can take a wild guess with who was the holdout. It was probably Thomas Massie. That'd be my guess, because, it's probably Thomas Massie. Democratic, 0 yes, 214 nays. Not a single Democrat wants this to get passed. And, you just can't help but wonder why. I wonder why. Probably because they want dead people to vote in blue states. We also found out just the other day that in the state of California, countless hundreds of thousands of people move from address to address. It's a very common thing. You change your residence. If you're a renter, it happens all the time. And out of the last, I can't remember the exact number. It was like 8 years or 10 years or 12 years. There was only 11 registered voters that were removed from the voter rolls because they had a change of address out of the hundreds of thousands. So, and I believe California is one of those states where they blanket ballot every single address, no matter what. So if you've moved to 6, 7, 8 different addresses over the last decade, you probably got 7, 8, maybe even 9 different ballots that are being sent out to all these different addresses that are in your name. So in other words, with those people that go and they do ballot harvesting, which I believe is also legal in California as other blue states, they go from house to house, probably checking the mailbox looking for ballots, and they collect the ballots. I mean, we saw that in 2020, I believe also in 2024, where people were getting caught with boxes filled with ballots, because they were doing exactly that. They were going around just looking for ballots that hadn't been filled out yet, and they would fill them out. So that was running rampant. So I would assume that's probably why Democrats don't want this to pass, because that would make it very hard for that to be a possibility if this bill were to pass. So, but they do need 60 votes in the Senate to get it to pass. So I'm not sure how they're going to be able to get it done. Maybe this is going to be the big moment, like the pinnacle in the Senate that we've been waiting for them to finally nuke the filibuster. So maybe they'll put it to the floor for a vote. Obviously, I don't think it's going to pass. And then maybe that might be the moment for Republicans to possibly nuke the filibuster. I don't think it's going to happen, because there's some Republican senators that are pretty staunch on leaving the filibuster as is, regardless of the Democrats' full intention of nuking the filibuster if and when they get back control of the Senate with, of course, a Democrat president. So we'll just have to wait and see for that. So, all right, Republican Study Committee. The only people who find securing our elections controversial are the Democrats, who only want to appease their radical base. Requiring proof of citizenship to vote is basic election integrity and the bare minimum we should be asking from those who want to participate in our process.
Let me talk about
Speaker Mike Johnson.
Act. You've heard a lot about it this morning. It is very important. Another thing that is very important to the American people, and another thing that the polls show that everybody's in favor of. Common sense legislation to just ensure that American citizens decide American elections. It really is that simple. Remember, House Republicans have already passed the SAVE Act during the last Congress and the current Congress.
I can't believe this law wasn't passed like 100 years ago.
Had the press
absolutely
conference on the House stuff to introduce the SAVE Act. Chip Roy and I, and Mike Lee in the Senate, and others were there to say that this is long overdue, because we know that non-citizens have been participating in elections, and it was a simple thing to say that we need to make sure you have to have proof of citizenship when you register to vote.
Not to mention the deceased. They still vote in blue states too.
Requires and anticipates, and we've got to make sure it happens.
Multiple address.
So now we have the Save America Act. It's identical legislation as the SAVE Act on the proof of citizenship, but as you heard, now voters would have to display a valid ID to participate in federal elections. Again, a no-brainer.
Yeah, and that actually reminds me, I meant to look this up the other day. I'm going to check and see how many states actually do require a photo ID currently. All right, so here's the results. List the states that require an ID to vote in elections. As of early 2026, there's 36 states that do require or request some form of ID to vote in person at the polls. What do they mean by request? Do you have your ID? What do they say? No. Well, okay, you can vote anyway. Anyway, per the National Conference of State Legislatures and other sources like Ballotopedia, the remaining 14 states, which is listed below, do not require any ID to vote in person. Voter identity is verified through other means like signature matching or poll book or affirmation. In other words, they just look and say, yeah, I guess that's close enough. I mean, signature matching, so it's like everybody's a handwriting expert. But anyway, so these are the states that do not require any ID, and they're not going to surprise anybody, of course. California, Hawaii, Illinois, Maine, Maryland, Massachusetts, Minnesota, Nevada, New Jersey, New Mexico, New York, Oregon, Pennsylvania, and Vermont. All are blue states. Pennsylvania, they're on the line, right? They're a swing state. And either Nevada was or they still are, I think, in some way or another. Doesn't Nevada every once in a while kind of swing one way or another? Or like maybe they've got Republican senators. I don't know. I'm not very knowledgeable with Nevada at all. I just, for some reason, I've got it in my mind that like I don't think that it's a swing state though. But anyway, yeah, so virtually all of them are blue states, basically. And yeah, I don't think that's going to surprise anybody. So yeah, those are the states that they don't require any voter ID. No wonder the Democrats are pushing back so heavily against this act. So note that Washington state often falls in the non-photo, non-strict category in some classifications, but core sources list the above as no ID required. Among the 36 states with ID requirements, many request photo ID. Some are strict, some non-strict, with alternatives like affidavits or provisional ballots. Others accept non-photo ID, such as a utility bill or a bank statement. For the most precise details, including what IDs count in exceptions, check your election office, and so on and so forth. So there you go. That's the list of states that don't require any ID. Absolutely insane. All right, House Republicans Chairman Rep. Brian Steele. I think it's nuts that we protect our beer in this country more than our ballots. House Republicans are ending this madness by passing the Save America Act.
This is a common sense principle. The American people know that you need to show a photo identification when you board an airplane, you open a bank account, or you buy a six-pack of beer. I'm often reminded we had a debate at committee, and I flew home to my home state of Wisconsin. I went to go buy a six-pack of beer. The clerk recognized me, said, "Hi, Brian." Said, "How you doing?" Said, "I need to see your ID." I handed over my ID, confirmed it, allowed me to buy the beer. I think it's nuts that we protect our beer in this country more than our ballots and jurisdictions. This is our opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to change that, to instill significant election integrity.
Well, I believe the reason they don't have the IDs is because I think we would have a lot fewer blue states than we actually have. I think that's the whole point. What do airplanes, Costco, alcohol, entering a nightclub, and operating a checking account all have in common? You got to show your ID. Why on earth would we not require an ID for something as sacred as voting to determine the future of this republic? Pass the Save America Act. Well, that's exactly, almost answered his own question, because Democrats, they don't believe in a republic. They believe in a democracy.
What do airplanes, Costco, alcohol, tobacco, entering a nightclub, and opening a checking account all have in common? You have to show your ID. We require identification for everyday activities. Why on earth would we not require it for something as sacred as determining the future of this republic? When the Save America Act becomes the law of the land, three simple things will be true. Number one, everyone who shows up to vote in a federal election will have to show their photo ID. Number two, states will only register American citizens to vote in federal elections. And number three, states will actually have to remove non-citizens from the voter rolls. Every American, Republican, Democrat, or unaffiliated, wants to know that their vote counts and is not canceled out by someone who is here illegally. This bill ensures just that. The right to vote is precious, and the SAVE Act restores confidence, strengthens integrity, and protects the voice of every lawful American citizen. I'm confident my colleagues in the House will do the right thing and vote to secure our elections. So I address my colleagues in the Senate. Save America. Bring this bill to the Senate floor to debate. Own your position in front of the American people. You must use every tool at your disposal, including the talking filibuster, to ensure that this bill makes it to President Trump's desk. We cannot delay securing our elections and defending our republic.
I mean, look, if they've had a voter ID requirement all along, do you think that they would even have sanctuary cities like they have now, or sanctuary states? I mean, like, what would be the point in protecting large amounts of illegal immigrants in these blue states if voter ID is always a requirement? Because they're not all of them, but a lot of them, they're a burden on the welfare system. I mean, many of them don't pay taxes. They undercut American workers in terms of wages and earnings. They gobble up the low-income housing and rental properties. Also, their presence caused food prices and utilities to jump because our system wasn't prepared to take in random people by the millions. And I don't know, if they're required to provide voter ID in order to print a ballot and cast a ballot, then you'll probably see the sanctuary status in these states quietly melt away, probably. That would be my best guess. All right, anyway, Congresswoman Julie Fedorchak, buying a cold medicine, boarding a plane, checking into a hotel, opening a bank account, renting a car. You kind of see where this is going. Why do all these everyday actions have in common? They require a photo ID. Retweet if you agree, showing a photo ID as common sense. And then Congresswoman Erin Huchin, Democrats require IDs to enter their own events, but think it's absurd to require them when voting in American elections. It's hypocrisy.
You're exactly right. And we've seen in states like Georgia where they went to voter ID, voting went up. There's no Jim Crow 2.0. It is a popularity thing. Actually, people want to vote more when they know it's safe. I want to talk a little bit about hypocrisy, because over the last few days here at Just the News, we've had a couple interesting stories. John Ossoff had an event. You couldn't go to his political event. He's a liberal Democratic senator from Georgia unless you showed a voter ID. Yet Democrats say that's Jim Crow 2.0. How do they deal with these inconsistencies? I don't see Chuck Schumer objecting, showing his voter ID when he goes on a plane to fly back to New York. It seems as though they have a conundrum with their own messaging.
Well, absolutely. They've been saying this about voter ID laws for years, and it hasn't proven to be true that it's any type of voter suppression. In fact, voter participation actually improves once these voter ID laws have been in place. Indiana was one of the first states in the nation to have voter ID, argued all the way up to the Supreme Court successfully. And we've seen it work in Indiana, just like we've seen it work in Georgia. One of the things that the Democrats have been saying is that this is going to somehow lead to voter suppression. It's just not vetted out in the facts of the case. John Ossoff requires an ID to go to his events. The Democrats have been saying, well, it's not a constitutional right to get on an airplane or buy beer or buy cold medicine or go to an event politically with John Ossoff. But it is a constitutional right to exercise your Second Amendment, and to purchase a firearm, you have to show ID. We don't think it's too much to ask to verify proof of citizenship and who you are, that you are who you say you are when you vote in our elections. And we hope that Democrat states would follow the lead of other Republican states that have already instituted voter ID, but they're not doing that. And we have seen in some states, including in the state of Virginia, where about 1,400 illegal immigrants were found on the voting rolls and 355 of them were confirmed to have voted. No one has yet been prosecuted for any of that voter fraud.
Well, yeah, and you really think that they're going to? I mean, they absolutely should. And I still think that I'm always going to find it laughable that they call Republicans Nazis when Democrats created and they comprised 98% of the KKK. They were also the slave owners, and Republicans were not. Hundreds of thousands of white men died fighting to end slavery, and we won. And also Democrats, they literally were Jim Crow. Quite literally. Jim Crow, the Jim Crow era. That was all Democrats. All right, Congresswoman Erin Huchin, we got one more great conversation with, John Solomon reports on the Save America Act. Election security is common sense. Proof of citizenship and voter ID will restore confidence in our elections. Let's wrap this up.
All right, you're right in the middle of this really important election integrity action. Tell us how things are faring. Is it going to get out of the rules? Is it going to get onto the floor? And is it going to pass?
Yes, I think we will get this bill out of the Rules Committee this evening. We will get it to the House floor. We will pass it out of the House of Representatives once again and send it to the Senate with the hope that they'll do it. This is a common sense piece of legislation that just requires proof of citizenship and a voter ID to vote in our federal elections. 36 states already have voter ID laws. It won't surprise you, John, to know that the 14 states that don't have voter ID laws are currently run by Democrats. They also, in the Voter Registration Act, or Voting Rights Act, we already have this as a provision. It's already illegal, but these states that don't require proof of citizenship or voter ID, it's rampant for fraud. The Democrats in the committee tonight were basically saying, oh, voter fraud is not widespread. Illegal immigrants are not voting in our elections in a widespread manner. And it doesn't matter if it is widespread. One vote and it makes a difference, even if one vote is fraudulent. And we cannot allow that because voting is a right, and those rights are diminished if we have fraudulent votes or illegal immigrants casting ballots.
Well, yeah, only 100%. And let me ask one more question here. No, I don't need the history. Let's go to here. So the percentage chance that the Save America Act passes in the Senate, and do Republicans plan to get the bill, or what do? Oh, okay, so I miswrote it. And what do Republicans plan? Because it's probably not going to interpret that right. So let me just have it redo it. All right, so here we go. The Save America Act, a bill requiring proof of U.S. citizenship for voter registration in federal elections, strict voter ID requirements, has very low odds of passing the Senate. Recent analyses and reports, Polymarket, they put the chance at around 10 to 21%, with many sources describing it as unlikely or dead on arrival due to the 60-vote filibuster threshold. Republicans hold only a slim majority. Of course, we know that, 53 to 47. There's this insufficient GOP unity to bypass or reform the filibuster, plus no realistic path to Democratic support. Republicans' their main plans to push it include pressure on Senate leadership, which I think that they're just going to be fighting a brick wall. House Republicans, via Speaker Johnson and advocates like Rep. Anna Paulina Luna, are urging Majority Leader John Thune to schedule a vote, potentially by restoring a talking filibuster, requiring active debate instead of silent holds, rather than fully eliminating the filibuster. Public and influencer campaigns, figures like President Trump, Elon Musk, and activists are applying pressure, framing it as essential for election integrity. Again, I think they're just going to be yelling at a brick wall. Potential attachment to must-pass legislation. Some suggest tying it to spending bills, which is something I have never liked at all. The way that, I mean, it's so greasy. Needing only 51 votes with VP tiebreaker, though this isn't currently advancing. Overall, no clear, viable path exists without major concessions or rule changes, which Senate GOP leaders like Thune have resisted. The bill passed the House narrowly, 218 to 213 on February 11th, but faces steep opposition in the Senate. So I think that what Democrats are going to demand, they're going to demand things that are non-starters for Republicans, like fully defunding ICE, eliminating the Department of Homeland Security, blowing the southern border wide open, bullshit like that. That's probably what they're going to be throwing out, or $1.5 trillion in DEI funding and woke funding like they were trying to get with the first government shutdown. All right, so House Judiciary GOP. Democrats don't want voter ID, but they wanted you to show a vaccine card to go to a restaurant. Don't forget that. Yeah, I remember that. Fortunately, I lived in Florida during the entirety of COVID, thank God. Not to say we didn't shut down, because we did for at least probably 3 months, I think, before they started opening up restaurants at like 30% capacity and all that nonsense. Still had to wear a mask to go everywhere. It was the dumbest shit ever. So glad that COVID's over with. And all right, so anyway, we have this from Rep. Becca Balint, who's a Democrat. The SAVE Act would put 1 in 4 women at risk of losing the right to vote. We cannot accept that, and no one should. Which, by the way, she's talking about the whole birth certificate argument. And I believe most women, once you get married, that's like one of the first things you do in addition to signing the marriage certificate. You go and you get your birth certificate changed because, that's just simply what you do. That's what you've always had to do. So let's give a listen.
The whole point of the democracy is to make it possible for people to vote, because it's the people who get to decide the policies. And Republicans talk nonstop about protecting women. And you'd think, if they really believe this, that this would be a non-starter for them, because it disenfranchises so many women.
It's so disenfranchising to go get your birth certificate changed, which most women do already.
But as we have seen with the...
Which, by the way, you don't even have to bring a birth certificate. Bring your freaking photo ID. 92% of American adults have a driver's license. And isn't it the law, I think, in virtually every state that you have to carry some form of government ID when you're an adult?
Epstein files over this past year, what they say and what they do are two different things.
Yeah, you can't forget the Epstein files. All right. House Administration Committee GOP. This is a false narrative from USA Today. There is a standard process in every state to change your name and update critical documents. The Save America Act also has specific provisions to protect the vote of people who changed their name. Don't believe the fear-mongering. And this is from USA Today. Here's how the voting ID law could make it harder for married women to register to vote and cast ballots if passed. Well, I mean, look, Democrats shouldn't have anything to worry about because it's not the women changing their last name these days. It's the men over on the Democrat side who are changing their last names, at least so I've heard. So we'll get into a little bit of this. Trump touts bill that could make voting harder for married women. President Trump is urging lawmakers to pass a voter ID bill that has caught heat in the past for provisions that several voting rights groups warn it could lead to voter disenfranchisement, including among married women. The Save America Act, which passed the GOP-led House Representatives last year, but it's installed in the Senate, is again at the center of discussions on Capitol Hill after it returned to the House floor. Lawmakers are expected to vote February 11th on the legislation, which they did. Supporters call the efforts a security measure and say they're trying to reinforce laws that will bar non-citizens from voting. That's not the only argument. I wish they would point out the other ones, including in some cases, it's been found out people who are deceased are voting. And also, I definitely remember Steven Crowder doing a segment where they went and they visited dozens of locations out west. I think it was either in Arizona or Nevada, showing up to locations where people lived who voted in the 2020 election. And when they showed up, the lots, vacant lots. There wasn't even a house there, no building, no nothing. Like people registered an address that didn't exist to vote. So anyway, however, voting rights advocates say it's exceedingly rare for non-citizens to vote, and such anomalies aren't pervasive enough to influence election outcomes. Well, if that's the case, then how come blue states are pushing back so hard with releasing their voter roll data? Why aren't they releasing their voter rolls? Just basic pedigree information that just shows the Americans who voted in the elections. Why are they pushing back so strongly against that? It's almost as if they have something to hide, like a whole bunch of non-citizens voting. These groups, including Brennan Center for Justice, say the laws could make it more difficult for millions of Americans to cast a ballot, especially younger voters and voters of color. And millions of women whose married names aren't on their birth certificates or passports could also face extra hurdles to register to vote and cast their ballots. Well, you know what? Like, voting shouldn't be as easy as like clicking a button, yes or no. It shouldn't be the easiest thing in the world to vote. You should have to go a little bit out of your way to vote. And I mean, like, sometimes I'm on the fence with regard to making the election day a national holiday where everybody gets the day off because, you know, like, look, if you're going to vote, you should at least have some knowledge in politics and who you're voting for. You should know, basically have a general sense in what the hell you're doing when you go to vote, instead of just blindly voting straight ticket here, straight ticket there. And look, I'm saying that just as much for Republicans as for Democrats, both sides. I mean, it just, like I said, it shouldn't be the easiest thing in the world to do. Not to say that it should be a difficult thing, but I don't think it's too much to ask that you have your basic information up to date, because everybody should anyway. Your birth certificate should have your actual last name that you have currently. So anyway, nearly 80% of women in opposite sex marriages take their spouse's surname, which is absolutely hilarious that it's only 80%. I mean, like, what, probably 15 years ago, 18 years ago, it was probably like 99% of women. Although I guess there is an argument to be made that some women just simply don't change their last name. So, I mean, like, I guess there's that also. Anyway, according to a 2023 study by Pew Research, most married men, 92%, keep their last names. Yeah, like that number specifically. I'm sure that number was probably closer to 99% like 10 years ago. Republican lawmakers in more than 24 states introduced measures requiring people to prove their citizenship over the past year, which would require people providing documents such as birth certificates or passports when they register to vote, according to the Nonpartisan Voting Rights Lab. Under current laws, many Americans need to present some form of identification to register to vote. Well, that's kind of like definitely not including a lot of information there, as we saw on Grok that virtually every blue state, you don't have to have any ID at all to go vote if you live in a blue state. The act would require Americans show additional documents that prove their citizenship, such as a passport or a birth certificate. According to the Brennan Center for Justice, more than 21 million Americans lack ready access to those documents. Well, guess what? You've got months and months. Matter of fact, I mean, now that it's in the center of discussion right now, anybody who hears that should be like, okay, well, I guess I might as well get my birth certificate changed now, because the midterms aren't until freaking November. So you got the better part of a year to go and get it done. All right, another catch is that birth certificates or passports may not be up to date if a person has changed their name. Most commonly, that happens during marriage, and voting rights advocates say problems could arise if an individual's documents do not reflect those name changes. Well, I mean, people aren't exactly getting married like all willy-nilly these days. I mean, marriages aren't exactly up. The proposed legislation landed in the public spotlight again recently after the president made controversial remarks during a podcast February 3rd, calling for the federal government to get involved in overseeing elections. All right, so anyway, I will have that linked if you want to read the rest of that article, and we'll move on to Senator Mazi Hirano. Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. The American people rejected the right's divisiveness and prejudice then, and if democracy holds, they'll know they'll lose again in 2026. So now this regime is attacking the bedrock of our democracy, free and fair elections.
The
This ought to be
Trump
fun.
regime still can't get over the fact that he lost the 2020 election. They sued multiple states, multiple election offices, including, by the way, my state of Hawaii, to charge that the 2020 elections.
Oh, so your deep blue state of Hawaii would not take up his case to be heard in your state with regard to the voting results. I mean, I wonder why. I wonder why that happened.
Were fraudulent.
Or didn't happen.
They lost practically pretty much every single one of these cases, but they're still pursuing it. They're setting themselves up to interfere with our elections in 2026.
I mean, dude, they've literally been saying that forever. I mean, like Al Gore, same thing, right? Interfere in the elections. Sure, even going back probably even back to like the 70s and 80s. I'm sure every time Democrats lost an election, oh my God, they were cheating. They set it up. It was all a big setup. All right, FBI Director Kash Patel, let's move on. The warrant execution in Fulton County involves an FBI criminal investigation examining whether any alleged electoral improprieties involved intentional acts that violated federal criminal law. So if you remember a couple of weeks ago, the FBI went to the Fulton County election office and they seized over 700 boxes full of ballots because they're investigating exactly that. So let me see if he included. Yeah, so here we go. It's going to be on Fox News. FBI reviewing Fulton County vote count deficiencies, court documents reveal. Search warrant affidavits detail allegations of missing ballot images, inconsistent recount totals, and chain of custody problems. The FBI is investigating Fulton County's handling of the 2020 election, according to newly filed search warrant affidavits outlining alleged ballot irregularities and record-keeping failures. I mean, that just goes to show, man, they had a lot of nerve of criminally charging President Trump back after all of this. I mean, knowing, allegedly knowing what we know now, I guess the investigation will have to play itself out. The FBI special agent who wrote the affidavits, which were filed Tuesday in federal court by the Department of Justice, described for the first time the scope of the investigation. The agent detailed a wide-ranging probe into missing ballot images, inconsistent recount totals, and chain of custody problems, raising allegations long leveled by President Trump and his base. The agent, Hugh Evans of the FBI Atlanta field office, said in the affidavits that physical ballots were needed to determine whether the alleged irregularities were administrative errors or intentional. Evans noted the FBI was investigating possible election-related criminal activity in Fulton, Georgia's most populous county, and that it did not matter whether the activity affected the final outcome of Georgia's 2020 race, which Trump lost by a razor-thin margin. Quote, if these deficiencies were the result of intentional action, it would be a violation of federal law, regardless of whether the failure to retain records or the deprivation of a fair tabulation of a vote was outcome determinative of or for any particular election or race, Evans said. One witness whose name is redacted is described in the affidavits as a chemical engineer and said that through his research, he found that ballot images did not line up with the number of ballots cast. Georgia Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger addressed the allegation, which was also made in 2020 by ordering a second manual recount of the ballots at the time. And the FBI is investigating what witnesses also alleged were duplicate images of ballots and absentee ballots with missing creases, which would be needed for the ballot to have arrived in its proper envelope, according to the affidavits. That's interesting. Many of the claims made in the affidavits were previously vetted by the Georgia State Election Board and through litigation. Trump and his lawyers at the time lost all of their cases after judges found they either did not have standing to bring the lawsuits or the allegations lacked merit. The affidavits come after the FBI executed court-authorized search warrants at the Fulton County Election Hub and Operations Center in January and explained the probable cause used to justify the warrants. Evans said the FBI investigation originated from a referral the Bureau received from Kurt Olson, who is described as a Trump-appointed Director of Election Security and Integrity. Olson also helped Trump raise election challenges after 2020. Trump Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard is also involved in the probe. In a letter to Congress, she explained why she was present at the Fulton election facility during the FBI search. Quote, interference in U.S. elections is a threat to our republic and a national security threat, Gabbard said. saying Trump asked her to be there. Okay. And let's roll on to the next. From DEA Houston, fake batteries were used to smuggle dangerous drugs like cocaine, and the DEA Corpus Christi agents arrested the individual who was responsible, another step toward safer communities. So they tagged a couple of images with this. So yeah, man, using car batteries to smuggle drugs. So, I mean, there's no limit to drug smugglers' potential creativity. All right, out of DEA Houston. And moving on to the Senate, Republicans, President Trump is making America safe again. This is from Axios. Violent crime plummets across major U.S. cities. Starting up here with Orlando, Florida, drops by 58.3%, followed by Tampa, 52.8%. I mean, both, that's music to my ears to see, or to my eyes, I guess I should say, because I live in the Tampa Bay area. Denver, 47.1% down. Prince George's County, Maryland, 40% down. Seattle, 36% down. Honolulu, 34% down. Albuquerque, New Mexico, the same. Columbus, Georgia, 33%. Washington, D.C., 32%. And Baltimore, 31% down. Oh, and by the way, that's homicide rates. That's not crime altogether or violent crime altogether. Cities with the largest drops in homicide rates from 2024 to 25. And from Tom Emmer, today, Hakeem Jeffries and House Democrats will vote to rescind the president's declaration of a national emergency at our northern border to protect Americans who are being killed by fentanyl pouring in from Canada. I thought I had this included in here. Democrats are making a huge mistake, and here's why. There's enough fentanyl to kill 9.5 million Americans across the northern border in 2024. The president was elected by 77 million Americans to close our borders and stop this horrific flow of drugs into our country. In 2025, there was an 80% increase in fentanyl seizures at the northern border thanks to the men and women of CBP. And in response to the president's national emergency, Canada's law enforcement made more than 8,000 fentanyl-related arrests and charges in just 6 months. It's a shame that Democrats are trying to harm American lives by ending this national emergency at our northern border, all while planning to shut down the U.S. Department of Homeland Security, the agency tasked with intercepting deadly drugs from flowing into our country. It's almost as if they have an agenda. Under the president's leadership, the situation has dramatically improved, but the scourge of fentanyl remains a national emergency. House Democrats want to end that progress, restore open borders, and weaken our standing on the world stage. They are playing with American lives, as they are, because, I mean, look, the blue states, and not all blue states, but some blue states, they made all drugs legal for recreational use. And even in New York City, they had freaking drug paraphernalia vending machines. All right, so Bill... is that Glahn? Bill Glahn? Democrat judges have invented a new legal concept called common law citizenship to prevent illegal aliens from being deported. I'm not kidding. This is from AmericanExperiment.org. That actually reminds me of sovereign citizens in the courtroom. That's a whole nother genre here on YouTube. You can watch these sovereign citizens try to plead their case before the court, saying that they're a common law citizen and they have common law rights, and they have a right to travel, which means they don't have to have a driver's license or a license plate or insurance or anything. It's freaking ridiculous. So it sounds like certain, probably far left-leaning, Democrat-appointed judges are seeming to adopt that language, which is laughable. All right, Democrat federal judges are inventing new legal doctrines to free illegal aliens from ICE detention, and that's from Politico. Federal judges may have found a workaround to reject the Trump administration's mass detention policy after an appeals court backed the approach. A 3-judge panel of the Fifth Circuit of Appeals on Friday blessed the administration's interpretation of the government's power to systematically detain people targeted for deportation, even if they have no criminal records and have lived in the country for decades. Well, it doesn't matter, dude. If you're here illegally, you're here illegally. You gotta go. As my friends would say, stop the tape. If you, a non-citizen, are in the United States without authorization, you're committing a federal crime. There's no exception in the law for successfully evading the law for decades or years or months, and for having an otherwise clean criminal record in America. You are a criminal. The law is crystal clear, shall be detained, so judges bent on ignoring the law have to be even more clever. Politico reports that 2 district-level judges within the Fifth Circuit, Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, have invented a new constitutional right which prevents ICE from detaining people who have established roots in the U.S. without due process. Those roots amount in legal parlance to a liberty interest that the Constitution says cannot be taken away without at least a hearing before a neutral judge. I'm otherwise a big fan of liberty, but these judges have manufactured a squatter's right to remain in America without permission. Keep in mind that detainees have already received all the process to which they are due. That is, they have been ordered removed by an immigration court, otherwise known as a final order of removal. One district judge wrote, the court reiterates its original holding that non-citizens who have established connections in the United States by virtue of living in the country for a substantial period acquire a liberty interest in being free from government detention without due process of law. And how does he decide when a connection has been established that overrides federal law? Is it de facto citizenship? Common law citizenship? Can these non-citizens now vote? Back in Minnesota, we were up to 862 habeas cases filed so far in 2026. Yikes, man. Yep, they were losing their ever-loving minds, doing whatever they can to keep their demographics, trying to keep their population numbers up so they can try to secure more House of Representative seats because the 2030 census is coming up. Anyway, Libs of TikTok students at Boswell High School in Texas participated in an anti-ICE walkout being led by a member of the Freedom Road Socialist Organization. Why are far-left organizers being allowed to push political activism on children? You can reach out to the school's principal, Ryan Wilson, here, and I'm not going to voice it. It's on screen, and we'll have a look at this one.
And you have to keep saying, you have to make a distinction. You are not the pig. Say it. You are not. I am not the pig. I am the proletarian. And you have to keep saying, I am a revolutionary. I am a revolutionary. And I will keep being a revolutionary.
Okay. I mean, these are high schoolers, and according to Libs of TikTok, he's the principal, right? I believe they said that he's the principal. So, yeah, absolutely crazy. No, they don't say that. They say you could reach out to the school's principal. I thought I read a post somewhere else that was the principal, but maybe he's not. But yeah, anyway, yeah, that's happening with high school students in Texas, of all places. And Jonathan Pallison says, I don't think it has properly registered that more than 5% of the entire population of multiple countries were allowed to enter the U.S. during the Biden regime. And this is a graph of illegal entries as a percentage of home population. And this is on the data came from cbp.gov and also the Department of Homeland Security. Title 8 encounters, CHNV flights, Biden era from February of 2021 through January of 2025. And that is the result. They've got, Honduras and Haiti and Cuba and Nicaragua over, 5%. All of them over 5%. Venezuela and Guatemala over 3% of the entire country's population. Nicaragua, approaching 8% of the entire population in Nicaragua flooded into our country during the Biden administration. That is absolutely crazy, man. Freaking insane. Senator Katie Boyd Britt, sanctuary city policies don't just undermine public safety, they also enable illegal aliens to defraud American taxpayers. We need cooperation at the federal, state, and local level to keep both our law enforcement and American citizens safe. Sanctuary cities should be defunded.
We've discussed the topic a lot, particularly in the last couple of weeks, about sanctuary cities. And it is my belief that sanctuary city policies are ruining America, and that both we can keep our law enforcement officers safe and we can keep our American citizens safe by cooperation on the state, local, and federal level. And that cooperation, I think, is incredibly important, and I've long thought that we should defund sanctuary cities. Obviously, there's a public safety risk, which I have just hit on, but can you discuss how those same policies enable individuals to actually defraud American taxpayers?
Sure. I mean, the whole point of sanctuary cities is essentially for those jurisdictions to exempt themselves from federal immigration laws that they don't like. So they become a major magnet for people who are trying to evade the laws and are trying to commit fraud. And I think one of the things that is perhaps not necessarily digested by the American public is that if you are here illegally, you have to commit fraud in order to accomplish anything in the United States.
Yeah, basically.
Because you can't work without appropriate documentation. You can't open a bank account. You can't operate a motor vehicle. And so all of these places, in refusing to cooperate with federal law enforcement in order to remove immigration violators, make themselves preferred locations for.
Well, look, I don't know if that's entirely true in the sanctuary states, because if you're an illegal immigrant, they're still going to give you a driver's license. I mean, I don't know what you have to show, whatever the documentation or lack thereof. But I'm pretty sure in these states, they're still dishing out driver's licenses to all these people. And once you have a driver's license, you've got your official government ID and pretty much do whatever from there.
Or committing fraud, because they're magnets for people who are trying to evade enforcement by engaging in fraudulent activities.
Thank you so much, Mr. O'Brien. I think we need to end sanctuary cities now.
And you know what? Maybe I'm wrong on that. What do I know? I could be wrong on that. I would be really surprised if someone who is a known illegal immigrant or somebody who doesn't have the proper documentation to prove that they're here illegally, I think it'd be kind of hard to get car insurance. I would assume that a car insurance company would not insure them. Okay, Homeland Security. Here's a list of Latin American countries where law enforcement demand proof of identity under reasonable suspicion or during investigations. And we've got a whole list. Got a fairly sizable list from Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Colombia, Costa Rica, Cuba, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, El Salvador, Guatemala, Haiti, Honduras, Mexico, Nicaragua, Panama, Paraguay, Peru, Uruguay, and Venezuela. Here's a list of the countries where leftists want this routine practice to end. United States. Yeah, ain't that the truth? All right, Bill Malugan, this Salvadorian illegal alien soccer coach in the Los Angeles area who is already charged with murdering one of his teenage players and assaulting 2 other boys, is now being charged with 8 counts of sodomy of a person under the age of 16 and oral copulation of a minor under 16 years old. Wow. New S-related charges filed against Southern California soccer coach accused in teen's murder. And they did say, yeah, an illegal alien, another illegal immigrant in Los Angeles. So this is going to be on abc7.com. Of course, the news headline isn't going to say that he's an illegal immigrant because I'm sure it's pretty far left-leaning ABC7 coming out of L.A. Anyway, it says 9 new criminal charges were filed Tuesday against a youth soccer coach who was already charged with murdering a 13-year-old boy and S-related crimes involving 2 teenage boys. Mario Edargo Garcia Aquino, who is charged with the March 28, 2025 slaying of Oscar Omar Hernandez, pleaded not guilty through his attorney to 8 new counts of sodomy of a person under 16 and 1 new count of oral copulation of a person under 16 involving one of the 2 surviving alleged victims. Here, let me go ahead and mute that. Garcia Aquino, now 44, remains jailed without bail while awaiting what is expected to be a 4-day hearing to determine if there is insufficient or sufficient evidence to allow the case against him to proceed to trial. So anyway, yeah, I don't think that's related. All right, and we'll roll on to the next post from Secretary Sean Duffy. The FAA and DOW acted swiftly to address a cartel drone incursion. What? The threat has been neutralized and there is no danger to commercial travel in the region. The restrictions have been lifted and normal flights are resuming. I didn't even hear about this happening. The temporary closure of airspace over El Paso has been lifted. There is no threat to commercial aviation. All flights will resume as normal. Holy cow, man. So yeah, if you were in El Paso today, then, I mean, you definitely know what's going on. I don't know if you know the extent of what was going on, but yeah, cartel drone incursion. So the cartels are flying drones over El Paso airspace now, I guess. That's a bit nuts. All right, from the Department of Energy Secretary Chris Wright arrives in Caracas to further President Trump's historic energy deal. In Venezuela, the U.S. Department of Energy Press Secretary Ben Dietrich released the following statement. Quote, U.S. Secretary of Energy Chris Wright arrived in Caracas earlier this morning to advance President Trump's mission to restore prosperity, safety, and security for Venezuela, the United States, and the entire Western Hemisphere. During his historic visit, Secretary Wright will engage directly with the interim Venezuelan leadership, including interim President Delcy Rodriguez, business leaders across all major sectors, and the people of Venezuela. He will also visit some of the nation's oil fields to see firsthand how President Trump's historic U.S.-Venezuela energy deal is unleashing peace and prosperity. And we've got a video from Secretary Wright in Venezuela, and it's a quote, so I'm just going to play it out.
It is an honor to stand here with you today and to be among the tremendous people of Venezuela. As Interim President Rodriguez mentioned, our countries share a long history that has gone through different chapters, as all relationships do. But I bring today a message from President Trump. He is passionately committed to absolutely transforming the relationship between the United States and Venezuela, part of a broader agenda to make the Americas great again, to bring our countries closer together, to bring commerce, peace, prosperity, jobs, opportunity to the people of Venezuela and in partnership with the United States. These are not just words or ambitions, but we have very specific plans and very specific actions already.
Okay, well, that's what I came across today. Would have liked to have seen who he was speaking to specifically, because it obviously sounds like he's outdoors. All right, rapid response 47 from 6 hours ago as of this recording. I have just finished meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel and various of his representatives. It was a very good meeting. The tremendous relationship between our two countries continues. There was nothing definitive reached other than I insisted that negotiations with Iran continue to see whether or not a deal can be consummated. If it can, I let the Prime Minister know that that will be a preference. If it cannot, we will just have to see what the outcome will be. Last time Iran decided that they were better off not making a deal, and they were hit with Midnight Hammer. That did not work well for them. Hopefully this time they will be more reasonable and responsible. Additionally, we discussed the tremendous progress being made in Gaza and the region in general. There is truly peace in the Middle East. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. And we've got this from John Kennedy. President Trump just signed my bill to stop sending checks to dead people. It's expected to save billions of taxpayer dollars. And he didn't link anything to this, so let's look into this a little bit. Okay, so the act that they're talking about, it refers to Ending Improper Payments to Deceased People Act, which President Trump signed into law today. And the bill makes permanent a mechanism for the Social Security Administration to share its death master file with the Treasury Department. This helps prevent and stop improper federal payments like Social Security, tax refunds, or other benefits from being sent to deceased individuals, curbing fraud and waste. Kennedy had previously passed a temporary version in 2020 that saved hundreds of millions. This new law extends those safeguards indefinitely, with projections of preventing billions in erroneous payments over time. It passed the Senate unanimously in 2025 and the House in early 2026. Well, at least, finally there's something that was unanimously passed for a change. So definitely good news. It's going to save the taxpayers a lot of money. And from Stephen Miller, Democrats shutting down the Coast Guard to protect criminal illegal aliens. Total madness. And from Bill Mulligan, new Admiral Thomas Allen, Vice Commandant of the U.S. Coast Guard, testifies that a lapse in DHS funding would force them to suspend all missions except for those involved in national security or protection of life. Says it would risk paychecks of 56,000 active personnel, cripple morale, and impact ability to recruit. Admiral Allen says personnel and Coast Guard ships manning the Strait of Hormuz shouldn't have to worry about being paid. I mean, I would certainly hope not. Absolutely wild. And from the U.S. Coast Guard, a decisive move to guarantee American security in the Arctic. Today, the Coast Guard announced it has completed the award of contracts for 11 Arctic security cutters, fulfilling President Trump's directive to rapidly expand America's icebreaker fleet. The latest award is for construction of up to 5 Arctic security cutters, bringing the president's initial order to completion and marking a historic milestone in U.S. Arctic capability. Davy Defense Incorporated will construct 2 Arctic security cutters at Helsinki Shipyard in Finland and 3 domestically. These cutters will form the backbone of a revitalized U.S. icebreaker fleet, protecting U.S. sovereignty and dominance in the Arctic. Delivery of the first vessel is expected in 2028, marking a significant step in services modernization through Force Design 2028. You could read more at the U.S. Coast Guard at news.uscg.mil, and I'll have that linked below. And there you go. There's an image of one of them that they are in the process of building. It's like we're going to have 11 in total. All right, lethality at its best. The F-35 Lightning II, advanced, stealthy, superior. I said I was going to play this on tonight's episode from yesterday because I ran out of time yesterday, so here we go.
Beyond the horizon, a predator emerges. Silent, observant, lethal. An apex hunter of its domain. It occupies space normally denied by nature, holding still like lightning trapped between cloud and earth, waiting to be released. Its senses are extraordinary, perceiving in every direction at once. Sight, sound, heat, and movement merge into a single instinct. When the moment comes, it does not announce itself. The prey never hears the wings. By the time danger is understood, the hunt is already over.
Hell yeah, man. Gotta love fighter jets, man. F-35 Lightning. Now those, they do sell those to other countries, some of our ally countries, obviously. But it's the F-22 Raptor that is not for sale to anybody, thank God. All right, from the White House, President Trump participates in the Champion of Coal event. I'm not going to watch the whole thing. It is, I think it's like a half hour. Yeah, 29 minutes, 54 seconds in total. So we'll just listen to maybe his opening remarks and we'll move on. So this was earlier today at the White House.
So I want to, and you wouldn't want to do it.
All right, here we go. From the coal
And
industry.
I know you well. I know you well. I think I get about 97% of your vote. And you wouldn't want to do anything else. You wouldn't switch with a guy who had a beautiful penthouse apartment on Fifth Avenue. You wouldn't switch with that was me. I had a nice, easy life. And now I decided to do this. But you know what? We just hit the highest price in the history of the stock market, 50,000. And a lot of people are getting rich with your 401ks and everything else. So our country is back. We have the hottest country anywhere in the world. So it's pretty cool, right? So I want to just tell you, I really appreciate you being here. You're special people. You got mistreated very badly for a long period of time. But you've never had a better friend in the Oval Office than me. And I'm proud to officially name the undisputed, when did this come out, Mr. Speaker? The undisputed champion of beautiful, clean coal. We have to proceed. Always, I don't use the word coal. It needs a PR job because it had a bad reputation for a while. So we're not allowed to say the word coal anymore. It has to be preceded by beautiful, clean coal, okay? We're cleaning it up. Very good. And we're delighted to be joined by Secretary Doug Burgum, who's done a fantastic job from the great coal mining state of North Dakota. And thanks as well to Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, a fantastic guy who's doing a great job. Thank you, Mike. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin. He's our secret weapon. He's getting those approvals done in record-setting time.
Hell yeah, man.
Great senators, John Barrasso and Jim Justice. Thank you very much for being here. Hi, Jim. Been a long time, Jim. You're looking good. Shelley Moore Capito. Thank you, Shelley. Thank you very much, darling. Marsha Blackburn, Bill Haggerty, Ted Budd, John Husted, Bernie Moreno, and David McCormick, all here, great senators, every one of them, great senators, representatives in the House, the National Mining Association, Richard Nolan, along with many of the greatest business leaders in this powerful industry and a great industry it is. But of course, the most important people here today are those who get their hands a little bit dirty to keep America running at full speed, our frontline coal workers, and I'm pleased to report that in the first year of my presidency, real wages for the typical miner increased by more than $2,200. I'd say that's pretty good, right? And I'll give you the bad news. It's the first time that that's happened in more than 27 years, all right? Those other presidents didn't take good care of you. They didn't take good care of you at all. They didn't realize what they had. The last time many of us were together, I signed a historic executive order to ensure that America's beautiful, clean coal plants would keep running when we need it most, and that's 24 hours a day in rain, sleet, and snow. You know, coal can operate when
the winter storm we just went through proved quite necessary.
Can't. The Biden administration, he had no clue what he was doing. Shut
They had
down
to ramp up coal production
dozens
during
of
that
coal
event.
plants. They shut
And
them
the
down.
deep freeze.
Literally, it seemed like one a week, one a day. They were shutting them down left and right as fast as you could. They were paying people to shut down a coal plant. And if we had stayed on the ruinous path, we would have seen mass suffering and rolling blackouts all over the country. We would have had blackouts right now all over the country. We would have had a country that worse than blackouts, every other thing would have been wrong with it, too, with all of the horrible things that took place at our border. And right now our border is 100% secure. First time in the history of our country.
If all the Biden regulations were still in place, we weren't ramping up coal production, we could quite possibly have had rolling blackouts.
And you see it all the time. So instead, when large parts of our country were hit with winter storms, it was coal that kept the power on, and it was coal that never was bothered by cold weather, warm weather. It's never bothered by anything.
Coal and natural gas.
It keeps on chugging, right? During this vicious storm, and they had some really bad ones, coal generation surged 31%, while solar and wind totally collapsed. I'm not a big fan of those crazy windmills that are all made in China. You know, they're made in China, but not used by China. Let's look for a couple of wind farms in China, see if you can find one. They sell us those things for fortunes, but we don't do them anymore. Have we done any this year, Doug? We're not going to do any, hopefully, for 4 years in this country. They're losers. They lose. You're supposed to make... You're supposed to make money with energy, not lose money with energy.
I thought they were supposed to make all those in America anyway. I thought that was the law. All the wind turbines have to be made in the USA.
And by the way,
of course,
they're
I never
all
thought
over
they were
Europe,
actually doing that.
I was recently there, and it's not recognizable what they've done to their beautiful fields and those beautiful, beautiful scenic areas, and they put those wind turbines all over the place, and they're chugging, 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 not doing a damn thing, except every time it goes around, it loses a fortune. It's horrible. They've lost their way. Not recognizable. And then I wonder why they don't like me over there. But you know who likes me over there? The people like me over there, I can tell you, because they know I'm right. More than 200 million Americans across 35 states were impacted by the storm, and the only reason most were able to take a hot shower was thanks to the power provided by the most reliable, dependable, and really dependable form of energy that we have, and that's clean, beautiful coal. Biden and the radical left wanted to abolish coal. They did everything they could, everything possible, but on day one of this administration, I ended the war on coal. We terminated the Green New Scam, and we withdrew from the unfair, one-sided Paris Climate Accord. That was another beauty we had. We paid $1 trillion. Nobody else had to pay 10 cents. Already I've saved 74 coal power plants from crushing restrictions and closures that would have been forced to shut down in the very immediate future. And today I'm proud to announce that the Tennessee Valley Authority is taking action to save 2 major coal plants in Tennessee. Tennessee Valley Authority.
All right, well, I'll go ahead and cut it there. I mean, yeah, even though we already have the technology in place that scrubs the coal emissions from the power plants, I mean, I'm sure, at least I believe, a very small amount of environmental destructive emissions get released out into the atmosphere from the power plants. But I also read somewhere that a region in the Northeast, they produce more electricity with trash burning than with wind turbines during the winter storm and the days following. And that actually reminded me that they actually burn trash where I live. They take all of our trash. They don't put it into a landfill because I live in a very densely populated, actually the most densely populated county in the state of Florida by a factor of 2 to 1 compared to the second most populated county. So we don't have a landfill. Well, I think we have some form of a landfill, but they don't put all our trash in it. They actually burn almost all of our trash, which produces 6% of our electricity, which supposedly lowers our electric bills by a little bit. I don't know if that's really true or not. So I'll repost that. There's a direct link to my profile down in the description if you want to check that out. And it'll take you straight to the profile, and you just scroll down just a tad, and this should be up there near the top. Or you can go to @WhiteHouse over on the X platform, and you can just type in x.com, click on this explore or the search button, and just type in White House. It'll take you straight there. Let's see, 4 hours ago. So that was at 4:30 p.m. February 11th, if you need an exact time to find it, because they're posting constantly on the White House's account, so you might have to scroll down a little bit to find it. All right, Maria Bartiromo. USDA moves to block foreign adversaries from American farmland. And we've got this at foxbusiness.com. And do they have the news segment too? Looks like it's actually going to be a bit long, though, so I'd probably be better off reading the article. Yeah, it's like almost 8 minutes, so let me just read the article. But of course, every article, they're all down in the description. So if you want to check the video for yourself. Oh, is it only the video? Well, if it's only the video, then maybe I'll have to play it. Yeah, it does look like it's only the video. All right, that's all right. That's all right. We'll give it a play.
Hey,
All right,
everybody,
here we go.
thanks so much for joining us this morning. I'm Maria Bartiromo, and it is Wednesday,
Oh my
February
God,
11th.
dude, this
It is
quality.
7 a.m. on the button on the East Coast. Coming up this hour in 20 minutes' time.
Oh,
the
there we
Speaker
go.
of the
That's much
House will
better.
be
It
here.
cleaned up.
Mike Johnson, my special guest. At 7:30, don't miss former Fort Worth Police Chief Jeffrey
Yeah.
foreign-based supply chains. Joining me now is the Secretary of Agriculture, Brooke Rollins. Secretary, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here.
Good morning, Maria. Great to be back on.
And I know you'll be signing a new memorandum of understanding today with the Department of War Secretary Pete Hegseth. You've said many times farm security is national security. Tell us about today's action.
Well, in just about an hour, Secretary Hegseth is coming over to USDA. We'll be hosting an event, doing a press conference, and signing a memorandum of understanding that an unprecedented effort to ensure that our departments are working together. I appreciate you've always been so great to kind of let me come on and talk about how farm security is national security, that before President Trump came into office, the consolidation of our farmlands, the foreign adversarial ownership of farmlands, especially from China and other places, has really been creeping up on our country. Now we have almost 300,000 acres owned by China. Of course, a lot of our food supply and food sources are now foreign, come from foreign sources, and we're working to reverse that while at the same time protecting our farmers, protecting our farmland from our foreign adversaries. So it's just another step in the right direction. I'm so proud of Secretary Hegseth. He has leaned all in on this, as has the president, and we're going to keep fighting for our American farmers and ranchers.
Well, that's a lot of acres that China already owns, Secretary. I know that you're putting a stop to foreign adversaries owning land now, but what about all that land that China owns already? How do you protect it?
That's a good point.
Well, we're working on that right now. Obviously, working with Congress. We've got a couple members of the Hill who've been very forward-leaning on this. Our chairman of both of our ag committees are really keyed in on this as well. But here's an important piece that I think that we're going to really be leaning into. The states have a really great opportunity to partner with the federal government on this. The most forward-leaning governor has been Sarah Sanders of Arkansas. She has really come to the table. We're working together. Nebraska, Jim Pillen has been very forward-leaning on this, and several of the other states. So not only are we going to be working with Congress, sometimes Congress takes a little bit longer than maybe Trump time allows, but the opportunity to work within the states, within their state legislatures, we're going to be really focused on that this year to address exactly what you said, not just stopping the moving forward the ownership of these lands, but also looking to see in these states where we are and how we begin to roll that back.
Well, I mean, I asked the same question when it comes to the Department of War's use of Chinese drones. I mean, I know going forward we're going to stop buying drones from China, but what about all the drones that we have in our armament already? You know, I mean, those are being used, and buying drones from an adversary, to me, seems like a huge risk, given that when you've got a drone shooting something, China can see the same thing. So there's that. I know that's not your portfolio, but it's the same.
Yeah, I don't know. I would pose a suggestion: just sell it to another country. Sell it to, I don't know, some European country, or maybe a Latin country, or any Asian country, whatever. Anybody who's looking for drones, let's just sell it to them. Just offload it onto another country. Somebody will probably buy
But
them.
you say that the administration, yeah, go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I think I was telling my kids this actually over the weekend, that a longtime conservative, having been in the policy realm for a long time, until Donald Trump came down those escalator steps in 2015, the common idea was, well, this is great wherever we get the cheapest good and wherever it makes the most sense, and how do we drive the price down?
Ridiculous.
And so China became more and more part of every market in America. And
Apparently
what the president represented was an entire sea change. I shudder to think that if Donald Trump had not taken the helm of the Republican Party, the conservative movement, the Make America Great Again, where we would be on all fronts.
Oh, yeah. Like, China's already surpassed us in electricity production in recent years. And the same goes with probably like defense, with technology, also with AI. That's another issue that I think they probably would have far surpassed us by now. If not now, then maybe like a year or so.
It's really a scary thought. But the idea that we're now out in front of it, we're putting a stop to it, we're looking to see how we roll a lot of this back, I think is one of the most important legacies that this president will have when we leave in 3 years.
Well, certainly with national security at the forefront of President Trump's agenda, I agree with that. Secretary, you say the administration.
Okay, all right. So they're going on and they're talking about other things. I just want to stick on stick to that topic with the Department of War and USDA. So this is from the Department of Agriculture. Today's MOU advances USDA's Farm Security Action Plan through a new partnership between the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, and the USDA chief scientist by allowing, number one, sharing of information regarding security vulnerabilities in agriculture. Number two, collaboration to develop novel technological solutions to American agriculture's biggest challenges. And number three, the exchange of personnel to ensure both departments are well equipped to protect American agriculture.
Today, I'm excited to announce that we are taking our National Farm Security Action Plan to the next level by pairing USDA's agricultural expertise with the Department of War's innovation and security capabilities. In just a few minutes, Secretary Hegseth and I will sign a memorandum of understanding that paves the way for additional collaboration between the Department of War and the United States Department of Agriculture. Our very first action to implement the MOU will be through a new partnership between the Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, with DARPA, and the USDA chief scientist. This will allow, first, the sharing of information regarding security vulnerabilities in agriculture. Second, collaboration to develop novel technological solutions to American agriculture's biggest challenges. And third, the exchange of personnel to ensure both departments are well equipped to protect American agriculture.
Well, there we go. And let's check out the signing. I think that's next. There we go. So Secretary Ward joined Secretary Rollins to sign a memorandum of understanding advancing the National Farm Security Action Plan. Food security is national security. I mean, obviously not a whole lot to see, just simply signing it. And the clap. Yay. I meant to pause it, not full screen it. That was really loud, my bad. Okay, so let's see. From Abigail Jackson, the Washington Post says they have breaking news and no public acknowledgement from the White House about an announcement the president made himself over a month ago. And they took the post down. Oh, man, I should have taken a screenshot of it. Oh, man, awfully convenient. Damn it. I was going to read my comment, too, because a lot of people were sharing the exact same thing. So basically, the Washington Post, which is hilarious because they just downsized by 30% of their entire personnel at the Washington Post, they put out an article today saying that President Trump quietly removed the National Guard from the following cities: Portland, Los Angeles, and Chicago. And of course, this got reposted by Abigail Jackson and tagged in President Trump's Truth Social post. And in the comments of the Washington Post from the Post, a bunch of people were also sharing this exact same post from President Trump. And he says and by the way, this was back on December 31st of 2025. And that Washington Post article came out today. We are removing the National Guard from Chicago, Los Angeles, and Portland, despite the fact that crime has been greatly reduced by having these great patriots in those cities, and only by that fact. So anyway, without that post being there, this is kind of pointless now. But I think that's hilarious that they actually removed it. All right, Federal Highway Administration. President Warren G. Harding was the first president who knew how to drive a car. In 1921, he became the first president to ride to his inauguration in a car, a Packard Twin 6. This marked a symbolic shift away from the horse and carriage era. So there you go. You learn something new every day. President Harding, first president that knew how to drive a car. All right, Rep. Nadler. So this ought to be rich. This is another disgusting example of the Trump administration's effort to erase the LGBTQ plus community. Removing the pride flag will not make us forget the legacy of Stonewall. I fought for Stonewall to become designated as a national monument, and I will fight to see that the pride flag is raised again. And from Gay City News, breaking: the Trump administration removed a large rainbow flag from a flagpole at the Stonewall National Monument. The National Park Service confirmed to Gay City News on February the 9th. And of course, every article I come across, I'll link it. And yeah, they're not too happy about that. And I'm assuming this happened today. They contacted the National Park Service on February the 9th about why the rainbow flag was removed from Stonewall National Monument, which sits at Christopher Park near the Stonewall Inn. It was designated as a national monument by former President Barack Obama in 2016. Under government-wide guidance, including General Services Administration policy and Department of the Interior direction, only the U.S. flag and other congressionally or departmentally authorized flags are flown on NPS-managed flagpoles with limited exceptions. Spokesperson for the National Park Service told Gay City News on the evening of February 9th. Any changes to flag displays are made to ensure consistency with that guidance. Stonewall National Monument continues to preserve and interpret the site's historic significance through exhibitions or exhibits and programs. So anyway, yeah, so it goes on from there. Of course, I will have that linked if you want to read up on the rest of that news. Of course, the Democrats, they're not too happy about that. All right, so from the rabbit hole, women are earning more college degrees than men. I think that probably surprises little to nobody. I think that's pretty common knowledge by now. So this is U.S. college degrees by gender as of 2020, 100 males for every 142 females. So I came across that. I know it's not a government profile, although the source was from the U.S. Department of Education, it includes associates, bachelor's, master's, and doctorate degrees. And from the U.S. Department of Education, $5.2 billion in reported foreign money flowed into the U.S. colleges in 2025, representing over 8,300 transactions. The Trump administration's new accountability portal gives the American people unprecedented visibility into where that money comes from. I mean, I would certainly hope to at least hope to know where the money's going. Like once it falls into the hands of universities, what exactly are they doing with that money? Are they raising the salaries of professors or the administration? Probably, among other things. And Secretary Linda McMahon, teachers shouldn't be forced to bankroll political agendas. Union dues are optional nationwide.
Teachers, did you know you are not obligated to pay union dues no matter what state you live in? In 2018, the Supreme Court ruled that public employees, including teachers, cannot be required to join or pay a union as a condition of employment. This was a huge win for American workers. No employee should feel obligated to hand over their salary to a union that is bankrolling political causes with their hard-earned paycheck. If you choose to stay, that's your call. The point is, the choice is yours. Returning education to the states is about empowering parents, students, and teachers alike, ensuring those closest to the child are making decisions that work for their students, not special interests or bureaucrats sitting in Washington, D.C. For guidance and answers to common questions, visit mypaymysay.com.
Interesting. I did not know there was a ruling in 2018 that you didn't have to pay union dues. I'm assuming if you don't pay union dues, then they're not going to represent you, which, of course, the union's going to say, well, you have to give us money because we protect your job. We ensure that you have job security. We fight for better benefits for you. And I don't think teachers, they don't get pensions, though, do they? I mean, it's as far as my knowledge goes, which isn't very far as unions go, that paying union dues, that also helps secure a pension, right? Isn't that like part of the point of even having a union so they can, secure things like that? All right. Anyway, NASA from 9 hours ago is going to be the final post of the evening. From the earliest days of exploration to the missions shaping our future, NASA represents the spirit of discovery that defines our nation. See how we're helping celebrate America's 250th birthday. Actually, I lied. I do have one more post after this. Usually NASA is the final one that I usually share anytime that they post something. So NASA's golden age of space exploration, America's leadership in the next golden age of science and discovery. As we celebrate America's 250 years of history, I'm grateful for the incredible legacy we're building upon and fired up for the American leadership in the next golden age of science and discovery. It's from Jared Isaacman, NASA administrator. So returning American astronauts to the moon, which we're very well aware of, especially if you watch the Swamp on at least even on a semi-daily basis. Even if you watch it once a week, you definitely know that we're sending astronauts up next month. So they've got a video for that upcoming events. NASA's SpaceX Crew 12 mission, which is supposed to be launching, I thought it was this week, right? So this is the Artemis 2 mission for March of 2026. I think they were supposed to actually launch today or maybe tomorrow, but the weather didn't fare in their favor, so they had to push it back at least for a few days. So NASA aircraft flyover at Independence Day event. NASA will conduct an aircraft flyover during the Salute to America, the nation's 250th birthday fireworks celebration at the National Mall in Washington on Saturday, July 4th. So they're flying over one of the NASA aircraft. That's cool. And Freedom 250. So they've got, rocket's red glare emblem to celebrate America's 250th birthday evokes the Star Spangled Banner's powerful imagery of rockets illuminating the night sky. America was forged by fearless explorers, and NASA boldly carries that legacy forward by leading mankind into the stars. Here, the first airplane soared, transforming the world forever. Here, we launched Americans into the final frontier and were the first to plant our beloved flag on the moon. As we mark this milestone, we're charging back to the moon, pioneering cutting-edge aircraft and expanding the frontiers of science and exploration. Honoring a legacy of exploration. Okay, so it goes into more info on the patch with the Star-Spangled Banner, more information on the patch. Then they've got some images. Then they've got the image gallery, NASA's Artemis II mission to fly legacy keepsakes with astronaut crew. As America approaches its 250th anniversary of declaring independence, NASA's Artemis II mission will carry a host of mementos that, well, see, now I got to read a little more of it now, that reflect the nation's long tradition of exploration, innovation, and leadership in its official flight kit. The items will fly aboard the Orion spacecraft, launch on top of the Space Launch System rocket, or SLS. It carries 4 astronauts to the moon. Historical artifacts flying aboard Artemis II reflect the long arc of American exploration. Okay, what are the artifacts? Let's see. Reinforced U.S. leadership. Okay, a 1-inch by 1-inch swatch of muslin fabric from the original Wright flyer and the Wright brothers used to make the first powered flight in 1903. That's going to be aboard the Artemis. Also flying aboard the Artemis II mission will be a 13 by 8-inch American flag, which flew with the first shuttle mission, STS-1, the final shuttle mission, STS-135, and NASA's first crewed test flight of SpaceX's Crew Dragon spacecraft, SpaceX Demo 2. A flag that was set to fly on NASA's Apollo 18 mission is included in the flight kit. Ryan's also carrying a copy of a 4 by 5-inch negative of a photo from the Ranger 7 mission, the first U.S. mission to successfully make contact with the lunar surface. Let's see, Artemis 1, a variety of tree seeds flew and were distributed to educational organizers and teachers after the mission. Let's see, also in the kit will be an SD card, including the millions of names of those who participated in the Send Your Name to Space campaign, which I took part in. My daughter and I, both of our names are on that. Additionally, NASA's included items from several of its partners in the kit. Stickers and patches from CSA will fly, and the European Space Agency, they'll fly a flag in the kit for distribution after the mission, marking NASA's international collaboration with other space agencies through Artemis. So yeah, man, they're sending some good stuff up there. That's kind of cool. All right, we're going to finish off with this. Progress to hell. Oh, wait, no, we're not. My bad. Not that one. We're going with this one. NRO, space weather isn't just a solar event. Solar storms can disrupt signals, overload power grids, and damage satellites in orbit. That's why scientists constantly monitor the sun. It's the only storm that can affect every orbit at once.
Space weather. The sun can cause blackouts on Earth. A single storm in 1989 knocked out power to 6 million people in Canada in under 2 minutes.
Yeah, it was in Quebec, wasn't it?
Solar flares hurl charged particles that distort radio signals, overload power grids, and damage satellite electronics. That's why scientists constantly monitor the sun's surface. It's the only kind of storm that can put all of our orbits at risk at once.
Yikes, man. Yeah, that's no joke. You can follow for more.
Space weather.
That's going to do it for the episode. Yeah, you should, if you're curious to look up anything regarding solar storms, you can look up the Carrington event from the 1800s. And they say that if we were to get a solar storm of that magnitude today, that it could wipe out our electricity across the board. So let's hope that doesn't happen anytime soon, because we're definitely not prepared for that. So anyway, if you enjoyed the video, please like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'll be dropping a new show tomorrow evening as I cover the swamp Monday through Friday and everyone in it, the politicians, the bureaucrats, and the agencies. And also, I'm going to post daily episodes over on X, so you can feel free to comment over there too if you like. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your night, and God bless America.